The trade war between the world's two biggest economies has escalated after China responded to US President Donald Trump's introduction of tariffs. Beijing has set out to target specific American goods with retaliatory taxes, among other measures following the blanket 10% tariff introduced by President Donald Trump on all Chinese imports to the US. The measures, which will affect US products ranging from liquefied natural gas to cars, will take effect on February 10. They were announced this week, hours after the US president's new additional tariff of 10% on Chinese goods came into force. Beijing also said it would launch an antitrust probe into Google, whose search engine is blocked in China. For now, Trump has held off on his campaign pledge of imposing 60% tariffs on Chinese export to the US. People familiar with the situation said he wanted to deal with Beijing, so he initially hit China with a lower tariff rate. Trump is expected to speak to Xi Jinping in the coming days. Trump also frightened its own allies and investors by announcing levies on Canada and Mexico, which he accused of failing to curb immigration and the flow of the deadly opioid fentanyl into the US. However, he holds off the tariffs for 30 days on Mexico and Canada after they have taken measures to control illegal immigration and drug trafficking from their borders. Canada and Mexico hope to negotiate trade tariffs with Trump in the coming days. Before I proceed, I encourage you to like the video and share your views on the topic in the comment section below. Your feedback is invaluable for us and a wider audience around the world. US law enforcement believes several China-based entities supply precursor chemicals, which can be used to make finished fentanyl in labs operated by drug cartels in the US and Mexico. Canada makes up just 0.2% of US border fentanyl seizures. Beijing has defended its efforts to control export of the precursor chemicals used to produce fentanyl and said the latest tariffs would erode the foundation of trust and cooperation in the field of drug control between China and the United States. The trading relationship between the US and China has shaped both countries' economies in recent decades. However, Beijing's share of US imports has fallen significantly since Trump introduced tariff in his first term in office. The fresh duties announced by China's Ministry of Finance levy a 15% tax on certain types of coal and liquefied natural gas and a 10% tariff on crude oil, agricultural machinery, large displacement cars, and pickup trucks. The measures take effect on February 10. In response to the Chinese retaliation, White House National Security Council spokesperson Brian Hughes said, President Trump is committed to saving American lives by using his authority to end the flow of fentanyl over our southern and northern borders that is originating from China. This is about prioritizing the safety and national security of Americans. Now, what would be the impact of the Chinese tariffs on US products? The Chinese tariffs will affect several US sectors, including coal, oil and gas, agricultural machinery, pickup trucks, and big cars. China has also initiated a probe into Google. Calvin Klein and Tommy Hilfiger have been added to its list of unreliable entities. China has also imposed export controls on 25 rare metals to the US. China's retaliation to Trump's tariffs is to impose a 10% tax on US coal and LNG and a 15% tax on crude oil. This means if Chinese companies want to import fossil fuels from the US, it will cost more and they will find alternatives. China is world's largest importer of coal and buys most of it from Indonesia, Russia, Australia, and Mongolia. Also, US imports accounted for just 1.7% of China's total crude oil bought from abroad in 2023. This suggests China is not dependent on the US, and so the impact of the tariffs on its economy could be minimal. However, China has been increasing imports of LNG from the US, but now it might not increase. Rebecca Harding, a trade economist and chief executive of the Center for Economic security think tank said China could easily source more supplies from Russia, where it has already been buying oil on the cheap as the Kremlin seeks to fund its war effort. China has slapped a 10% tariff on agricultural machinery, pickup trucks, and some large cars. But China is not a big importer of US pickups, and it gets most of its cars from Europe and Japan. So a 10% tariff on an already small number of imports would not hit consumers too hard. In recent years, China has increased investments in farm machinery to enhance production, reduce reliance on imports, and strengthen its food security. China has added PVH, the American company that owns designer brands Calvin Klein and Tommy Hilfiger, to its so-called unreliable entity list and accused them of discriminatory measures against Chinese enterprises. The list, which has other US firms on it, was created in 2020 by Beijing amid the heating up of trade tensions. For Calvin Klein and Tommy Hilfiger, being on China's list will make it harder to do business in the country. They may face sanctions, including fines and having the work visas on their foreign employees revoked. While tariffs have been placed on companies wanting to import goods from abroad, China has also imposed export controls on 25 rare metals. Some of the metals are key components for many electrical products and military equipment. China has mastered the ability to refine such metals and produced almost 90% of global refined output. The Ministry of Commerce and China's Customs Administration also announced new export controls effective immediately on more than 24 metal products and related technologies. These include tungsten, a critical mineral typically used in industrial and defense applications, and tellurium, which can be used to make solar cells. Beijing's antitrust regulator announced the investigation into Google for suspected violations of anti-monopoly laws on Tuesday. While the search engine is blocked in China along with most of parent company Alphabet's businesses, the US group profits from Chinese businesses advertising abroad. Has the trade war between the two biggest economies in the world already started, or it can be avoided? The Chinese measures announced on the final day of China's week-long New Year holiday mark what could be the opening salvo of a new tit-for-tat trade war between Washington and Beijing. However, they don't rule out the possibility of further dialogue or deal-making between the two sides. Trump is expected to speak to Xi Jinping in the coming days, prompting hopes that the two leaders will be able to work out a deal to avert a full-blown trade war between the world's two largest economies. Ultimately, a full-blown trade war between the two largest economies will cause common people to suffer. We hope the two leaders will talk and find a way to avoid a trade war. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for new videos on important international topics.